I join those who believe that the actions taken by the FBI did, in fact, have an impact on the election.
But there's no question that had a great effect.
It had to occur to you that this public chastisement put Secretary Clinton in a negative light.
Democrats this week, including, of course, Hillary Clinton herself, still blaming the FBI director for her loss in the election. But Sabrina says they'll keep losing as long as they're not addressing the needs of working-class Americans. Explain, Sabrina.
Yeah, David, I think it's certainly working-class Americans, and it goes beyond that. It's about connecting on a human level. I think so often both lawmakers on the left and the right forget that politics is personal. And a real challenge for Hillary Clinton was showing people that she connected with them. There was a lot of talk about Hillary as the first, potential female president. There wasn't a lot of talk about how do I connect with you on a human level. In fact, she didn't even bother to visit a lot of the states where some of these people are really hurting. And I think that hurt Democrats. It traditionally hurts Republicans. But now it's a problem on the left.
Well, Bruce, even some Democrats are saying this. There was an Ohio Democratic Congressman, Tim Ryan. He said the following on Friday. He said, quote, "We had a lot of commercials about Donald Trump, and we didn't have enough commercials about working class people and how we were going to help them." Is that Democrat right?
I do believe he does have a point. I think the election was lost well, first of all, in any other republic, she would have won by 3 million votes. Let's put that aside. So she did well, but she didn't do well enough. And I think the fact of the matter is her message didn't get through because it was talking about, emails and who Donald was grabbing in elevators or whatever. And so I think that the Democrats do need to focus on issues, and I think they need to get the campaign on the issues.
Well, and EMAC, one of the biggest issues, at least during the Obama administration, was people were losing money.
Yeah.
The median income rose at just 0.6%. That's less than inflation, which means they were losing money.
Yeah, and it was sticking also at 1997 levels. And by the way, I think those 3 million popular votes were all in California. But, the rest of the country was saying, hey, wait a second. By the way, the Democrats should have seen what was happening out in the country long before Hillary Clinton. State legislatures started moving toward the Republicans because they had the vision. They had the growth plan. They had the jobs plan. I mean, voters were saying essentially when it came to the trustworthiness of Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, we trust sushi sold by a gas station more than your plans to grow the economy or jobs. Because you don't have anything, you don't have a plan.
I have never had sushi from a gas station, but I don't want to begin now. But Rich, the fact is that the Democrats used to be able to rely on a voting bloc of working class Americans. They clearly lost that bloc, and that cost them the election, right?
Yeah, well, it's been a multi-decade parting from the blue-collar workers because they're now all about teachers' unions, professors, the mainstream media, snowflakes on college campuses. And Hillary herself, what a horrible symbol. I mean, this is a woman, whether she was in the governor's office in Little Rock or First Lady, the way she treated people on staff on Air Force One, the way she treated Secret Service people, yelling at them. Blue-collar people are really sensitive to that kind of stuff because they get that kind of crap every day of their lives.
Yes,
but, Steve, more than just being about one person, whether it's Trump or Hillary, this has been a long-term bleed. From 2009 to 2016, Democrats have lost, look at this, 63 seats in the House of Representatives, 11 Senate seats, and then in the state legislatures, they've lost even more, 13 governorships. All that really kind of weighs on their ability to win elections, whether it's presidential or anything else.
Yeah, the Democrats have gone a long way downwards from the days of John F. Kennedy, where you could appeal to a strong national defense and a vibrant economy. They're now just appealing to the precincts in California, New York City, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and that's it. And it's showing all around the country. They don't have a message. Hillary Clinton never had a message in that campaign other than that she wanted the job. It was hers.
Right. And, Bill, the message is clearly we're going to help the working people. And Donald Trump said it clearly. Hillary Clinton, maybe she tried to say it, but it didn't come through.
No, the Dems definitely lost the workers, and then they want to blame anybody but that failing. A lot of them think the Russians stole the election by hacking into Republican computers and then failing to leak the dirt to the New York Times.
Bruce, isn't that a failing? I mean, when are Democrats going to get off that and focus on what really counts in elections?
Well, I think a lot of this is cyclical. I mean, when Bush was in for 8 years, you had the Republicans sliding, and that's what you're having now. I mean, I would agree. I mean, there needs to be more of a coherent message, and I think it'll pick up, as opposed to, you know, Comey talked about being mildly nauseous. I think Democrats are sort of chronically nauseous after November's election.
It's making me car sick watching what the Democrats are doing. And they're not going to get a plan out of Keith Ellison or Tom Perez right now. It ain't going to happen. There's no jobs or growth plan. And by the way, James Comey didn't tell Hillary Clinton, go use a private server in your basement for the nation's secrets. Go call people deplorable or irredeemable. James Comey didn't do that.
Yeah, Sabrina, we did mention Tim Ryan. He's one Democrat who says we got to get off this blaming game and focus on getting Democrats back to representing that voting bloc that cost them the election. So is that message spreading, or is he still a small minority in the Democratic Party?
Well, I'm not sure yet, but I do think that Tim Ryan is onto something, and that part of that is that they're sort of Democrats' obsession with identity politics, and I think that was another real problem for Hillary Clinton. She talked about issues like paid leave, for instance, as a women's issue. In fact, this is an issue that affects all voters. It's a massive economic issue, and the real issue is that of poverty. It's an issue of low-paid workers who need more opportunities. So this could have been an issue where we really addressed economic growth, and there was a real conversation on both the left and the right about how to stimulate the economy. She missed that.
All right. First and last word.